Racist cops assault disabled woman, but her son made the cop pay. Corliss Hayes, a 60-year-old black woman, was publicly humiliated by a racist police officer who slapped her and accused her of theft, unable to fathom her ownership of an emerald necklace. The injustice rooted in prejudice against her race and disability unfolded on a quiet street in Windale, North Carolina, exposing the town's buried tensions. Yet Corliss, who lost her left arm in a work accident decades ago, carried a quiet strength, her dignity unshaken. Her son, Major Xavier Hayes, a high-ranking federal officer, would soon turn this act of cruelty into a reckoning. The incident captured on video sparked outrage, forcing the town to confront its complicity. Corliss's resilience and her son's authority could reshape Windale's future, but at what cost? Her calm defiance hinted at a power that could outshine the darkness of discrimination, setting the stage for a story of justice incomplete but transformative. The morning sun spilled gold across Ellison Street, Windale's cobblestone heart, where Corliss Hayes walked with measured steps. Her off-white blouse caught the breeze and her brown leather shoes tapped softly, echoing resilience. The emerald necklace, a gift from her son Xavier, gleamed against her collarbone, its weight a reminder of love. At 60, Corliss's face bore lines of laughter and loss, her left arm taken by a factory machine at 22 left, a sleeve pinned neatly at her shoulder. She hummed a hymn, her voice low like the rustle of leaves in the town's ancient oaks. Corliss lived alone in a small clapboard house, its porch adorned with potted marigolds. Each dawn she brewed coffee, its bitter warmth steadying her. A single mother since Xavier's father left, she'd raised him with fierce pride, her disability never a barrier. Once a union organizer, now a guest speaker, she just addressed the Windale Technology Forum, her words on equity stirring the crowd. But memories of workplace exploitation and racial slights lingered sharp as a broken glass. She wanted peace. Sipping coffee, tending flowers, watching Xavier thrive. Yet the town's whispers about her place gnawed at her. As she passed the bakery, its cinnamon scent fading, she felt eyes on her necklace judging. When Officer Darby's shadow loomed, her heart sank but her spine stiffened. His accusation of theft stung, his slap burned, yet Corliss's wet eyes held fire. She wouldn't scream. In that moment, her want for peace clashed with her need to resist. Silently, she pressed her smartwatch's emergency mode, deciding to speak not with fists, but with truth. The air on Ellison Street thickened with late morning heat, the cobblestones shimmering under a relentless sun. Corliss Hayes stood frozen, her brown leather shoes rooted to the ground as Officer Ron Darby's shadow swallowed her. His voice sharp and gravelly cut through the hum of distant traffic. "Where'd you steal that necklace, huh?" The emerald at her throat caught the light, a defiant spark against his accusation. Around them, Windale's old town pulsed with indifference. Shopkeepers swept doorsteps, a delivery truck rumbled past, and pedestrians glanced, then looked away, their footsteps quickening. The bakery's cinnamon scent soured in Corliss's nostrils, replaced by the metallic tang of fear. Darby, his badge glinting like a taunt, didn't wait for her answer. His face flushed with authority, twisted as he sneered, "A people like you don't own things like that." Corliss reached into her pocket, her single hand steady, and produced her Windale Technology Forum guest card, its gold-embossed letters proclaiming her role as a speaker. "This necklace," she said, her voice low but clear, "was a gift from my son, a federal officer." Her words hung in the air, deliberate, each syllable a shield. Darby's eyes narrowed, unyielding. Without warning, his hand swung the slap, cracking against her cheek. The sound echoed sharp as a whip, silencing the street's murmurs. Corliss's face stung, her cheek hot, but her eyes wet alive. With decades of endured slights locked onto Darby's, she didn't flinch. "You just touched the most sacred thing of this mother," she said, her voice a quiet thunder. The crowd thickened, phones raised like silent witnesses, capturing the scene. A teenager in a red hoodie hesitated, then kept filming. An older woman clutched her purse, whispering to her friend, but no one stepped forward. The absurdity of it all. The necklace, her dignity dismissed in broad daylight, settled like dust on Corliss's shoulders. Darby, emboldened by the silence, grabbed her wrist, snapping handcuffs on her. The cold metal bit into her skin, the click loud in her ears. He dragged her down the street, her shoes scraping the cobblestones, the necklace bouncing against her chest. Whispers rippled through the crowd. "She must have done something. Why is she wearing that?" Corliss's heart pounded not with fear, but with a clarity born of survival. She'd faced worse factory bosses who mocked her injury, neighbors who questioned her son's success. Yet this public shaming clawed at her soul. Her initial shock had hardened into resolve. As Darby pulled her toward the police station, she pressed her smartwatch's emergency button, its faint beep a secret rebellion. She imagined Xavier, her son, receiving the signal, his face tightening with purpose. The street blurred, faces, storefronts, the oak tree's shadows, but Corliss stood tall, her silence louder than Darby's insults. The injustice, raw and ugly, was now exposed, its weight shared by every onlooker who did nothing. What do you think of Corliss's strength in this moment? Share your thoughts like this story, and subscribe for more tales of courage and justice. The police station's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a sterile glow on the linoleum floor. Corliss Hayes sat on a metal chair, her handcuffed wrist aching, the emerald necklace heavy against her chest. The slap sting lingered on her cheek, a dull pulse, but it was the weight of the room's silence that pressed hardest. The clerk typed, her eyes fixed on the screen, avoiding Corliss's gaze. Two officers shuffled papers at a nearby desk, their whispers like static. Outside, through a smudged window, Ellison Street carried on, cars hummed, a dog barked, life indifferent to her humiliation. Corliss felt the isolation like a cold fog wrapping around her, seeping into her bones. Her mind churned, a storm of hurt and resilience. She'd built a life on enduring, losing her arm at 22, raising Xavier alone, facing Wendell's sidelong glances. Each scar, physical and unseen, had forged her into steel, yet this moment cracked something deep. Darby's words. People like you, echoed, slicing through decades of pride. She saw her younger self bandaged in a hospital bed, vowing never to let the world define her. Now at 60, that vow wavered, not broken but bruised. Her fingers, trembling slightly, traced the necklace's chain. Xavier's gift, a tether to her strength. She closed her eyes, picturing his face, his steady eyes, his uniform crisp anchoring her. The room's indifference gnawed. The clerk's pen scratched a relentless rhythm. An officer glanced at her, then away, his jaw tight as if her presence was an inconvenience. No one asked if she was hurt. No one offered water. The crowd from the street, those who'd filmed and whispered, hadn't followed. Their absence stung more than the handcuffs. Corliss remembered the teenager in the red hoodie, his phone raised, hesitating. Had he posted the video, would it matter? The town knew her Union fighter speaker, Xavier's mother, yet here she was, just a one-armed black woman, reduced to a stereotype in Darby's eyes. Her breath caught a small hitch as she recalled her mother's voice. Child, they'll try to dim your light, but you shine anyway. She wanted to shine to stand tall, but the isolation carved a hollow space. She shifted her shoes, squeaking on the floor, and caught her reflection in the window gray curls, framing a face etched with dignity. Her eyes, though wet, burned with defiance. She wouldn't cry, not here. Instead, she focused on the smartwatch's faint vibration, its emergency signal sent. Xavier was coming. That certainty was her lifeline, a thread pulling her through the fog. Tension coiled tighter as minutes dragged. Darby entered, his boots thudding, his smirk gone, but his posture unyielding. He leaned against the desk, arms crossed, staring at her like a puzzle he couldn't solve. You think that card means anything? He muttered, nodding at the forum guest card on the table. Corliss met his gaze, her silence a blade. She noticed his fingers twitch, a flicker of unease. Good, she thought. Let him feel it. Her heart raced not with fear, but with a fire-kindling anger, yes, but also purpose. She'd spoken to crowds, rallied workers, raised a son who commanded respect. This moment wouldn't break her. A phone rang shrill, cutting the air. The clerk answered, her voice low, then glanced at Corliss, eyes widening. Whispers spread among the officers, their heads turning toward the door. Corliss's pulse quickened. She felt the shift subtle but seismic, like the air before a storm. Her isolation, though heavy, began to crack. The watch vibrated again, a second signal received. Xavier was close. She straightened the necklace, catching the light, a beacon of her worth. The room's indifference couldn't erase her. She was Corliss Hayes, and she would endure. Her thoughts flickered to the crowd outside, their silence a betrayal. Would they speak now? Would Wendell? The tension rose, a taut wire, as she waited, her resilience a quiet roar against the station's cold walls. She clasped the necklace, her single hand steady, and whispered to herself, I am enough. The police station's air grew taut. The fluorescent hum now a distant drone as Corliss Hayes sat, her single hand resting on the emerald necklace. The cold metal chair pressed into her back, but her posture remained unyielding. Her wet eyes fixed on the door. The clerk's typing faltered, her glances darting between her screen and the entrance. Whispers among the officers thickened, their voices low but urgent. Corliss felt the shift, a ripple in the room's tension like the first gust before a storm. Her smartwatch, silent now, had done its work. Xavier was coming. But it was her own quiet act of resistance, pressing that emergency button on Ellison Street, that had set this moment in motion. Outside, the screech of tires cut through Windale's midday calm. 3 black military SUVs pulled up their doors, slamming with precision. Major Xavier Hayes stepped out, his federal uniform crisp, his face a mask of controlled fury. His boots clicked on the pavement, each step a promise. Behind him, representatives from the Department of Justice, the Internal Affairs Review Board, and a senior legal counsel followed their briefcases, swinging their presence, a weight that silenced the street. A small crowd gathered, phones raised, the teenager in the red hoodie among them, his video already spreading online. The air buzzed with anticipation, the oak tree's shadows trembling in the breeze. Inside, Corliss sensed the change before she saw it. The door swung open and Xavier entered, his eyes finding hers instantly. The room froze. Darby, leaning against the desk, straightened, his smirk vanishing. The clerk's pen dropped clattering on the floor. Corliss's heart swelled not with relief but with pride. Her son, the boy she'd raised through sleepless nights and whispered prayers, now stood as a force, his authority undeniable. Yet it was her action, her quick thinking in the street, activating the watch that had summoned him. That small, deliberate choice, born of her refusal to be diminished, had turned the tide. Xavier's voice, calm but steel-edged, filled the room. "Release my mother, now!" He didn't shout. He didn't need to. Each word landed like a gavel. Darby stammered, his hands fumbling, but the senior officer on duty stepped forward, unlocking Corliss's handcuffs with trembling fingers. The metal fell away and Corliss rubbed her wrist, her gaze never leaving Xavier. She stood slow and deliberate, the necklace catching the light, a symbol of her worth. The justice representative, a woman with sharp eyes, handed Darby a notice of immediate suspension, her voice clipped. "You'll answer to the review board." Corliss's mind flashed to the street, the slap, the whispers, the indifference. Her smartwatch had recorded Darby's rant, so it's audio now in Xavier's hands, a weapon of truth. That recording paired with the teenager's video was already rippling, beyond Windale shared across X, sparking outrage. Corliss felt the power shift not just in the room but in the town, the nation. Her son's position, deputy director of the Federal Warfare Training Center, gave him influence. But it was her resilience, her refusal to bow, that had ignited this reckoning. She'd always taught Xavier strength isn't loud, it's steady. Now she lived it. Darby's face paled as the legal counsel outlined the charges: assault, racial profiling, abuse of power. The officers who'd stood by silent shifted uncomfortably, their complicity exposed. Xavier stepped closer to Corliss, his hand brushing her shoulder, a silent vow. She nodded, her eyes conveying trust, but also a question. Would this be enough? The crowd outside grew louder, their voices filtering through the window, demanding answers. The teenager's video, now viral, had lit a fuse, but the outcome hung in suspense. Would Windale face its truth, or would it retreat into silence? Corliss clasped her necklace, its emerald cool against her skin, and felt the weight of her own power, a mother, a survivor, a voice. She'd acted, and Xavier had answered. But how would they resolve this? Would justice bend the town's heart, or merely its rules? What do you think Corliss and Xavier will do to ensure this moment changes Windale forever? The Windale police station, once a fortress of cold indifference, now hummed with urgency. The fluorescent lights flickered as if struggling to keep up with the storm brewing within. Corliss Hayes stood beside her son, Major Xavier Hayes, her emerald necklace gleaming like a quiet defiance. The room moments ago heavy with tension now crackled with the weight of accountability. The Department of Justice representative, a woman named Mrs. Carter, paced before Officer Ron Darby, her heels clicking on the linoleum, her voice sharp and measured, laid out the consequences: assault, racial profiling, and conduct unbecoming an officer. You're suspended effective immediately pending a full investigation. Darby's face drained of color, his hands twitching as he stammered, "I didn't know who she was." Xavier's eyes narrowed, his voice low. "Her identity isn't your excuse." Outside, the crowd swelled, their voices a rising tide. The teenager's video shared across X had exploded, amassing thousands of views. Hashtags like Justice for Corliss trended, drawing media attention. A local news van parked across the street, its reporter scrambling to set up a camera. The Internal Affairs Review Board member, a stern man with gray hair, addressed the station's officers. "Those who witnessed and did nothing will face disciplinary review." The clerk, her pen still shrank in her chair. The 2 officers who'd shuffled papers during Corliss's detention exchanged nervous glances, their silence now a liability. Corliss felt the shift, her dignity rising like dawn after a long night. She adjusted her off-white blouse, the fabric soft against her skin, and touched the necklace, Xavier's gift, her anchor. The handcuff marks on her wrists stung, but she stood taller, her presence commanding the room. Ms. Carter approached, her eyes softening. Mrs. Hayes, we're ensuring this doesn't end here. The Justice Department is launching an audit of Wynndale's policing practices. Corliss nodded, her voice steady. I don't want apologies. I want change. Her words silenced the room, a mother's resolve cutting through the bureaucratic hum. Darby's punishment was swift. Stripped of his badge, he was escorted out, his boots dragging on the floor. The crowd outside jeered, their phones capturing his exit. Xavier's legal counsel handed him a mandatory racial sensitivity training and community service, including distributing civil rights pamphlets in Wynndale's black neighborhood. Darby's eyes darted, searching for an escape, but found none. His reputation, once propped by arrogance, crumbled under the weight of public outrage. A local business owner who'd long boasted of Darby's toughness posted a retraction on X, distancing himself. The town's veneer of denial was peeling away. Corliss stepped outside, the midday sun warm on her face. The oak trees along Ellison Street swayed their leaves, whispering as if in solidarity. The crowd parted, some clapping, others murmuring apologies. The teenager in the red hoodie approached, his phone lowered. I posted it, he said, voice trembling. I'm sorry I didn't do more. Corliss smiled, her eyes warm. You did enough. Her words carried weight, a balm for the boy's guilt. Xavier stood beside her, his uniform a symbol of power, but it was Corliss's quiet strength that drew every eye. She was no longer the one-armed black woman of Darby's scorn. She was Corliss Hayes, unbroken. The media swarmed, microphones thrusting forward, but Corliss raised her hand, silencing them. This isn't about me, she said, her voice clear, carrying over the crowd. It's about every mother, every person who's been told they don't belong. Her words, captured by cameras, echoed online, shared by activists and ordinary citizens alike. Xavier squeezed her shoulder, pride in his eyes. The Justice Department's audit, spurred by her case, promised to reshape Wynndale's police force, but Corliss knew the real work lay in the town's heart. As the SUVs prepared to leave, Corliss glanced at the station, its doors now a symbol of accountability. She'd regained her dignity not through vengeance, but through truth. Darby's consequences were just the start. Wynndale would have to reckon with itself. Share your thoughts on Corliss's triumph and what it means for justice in your community. Let's keep this conversation alive. The evening sun dipped low, painting Wynndale's Ellison Street in hues of amber and shadow. Corliss Hayes sat on her porch, the creak of her rocking chair, a soft rhythm against the hum of crickets. Her emerald necklace rested in her lap, its glow dimmed by the day's wait. The victory was hers. Darby suspended, the Justice Department's audit underway, her dignity reclaimed in the eyes of the town. Yet the triumph felt hollow, edged with cost that lingered like the ache in her wrist. The slap had faded, but the memory of the crowd's silence, their averted eyes, carved a deeper wound. Wynndale had cheered her, but only after Xavier's arrival. Would they have stood for her alone? Corliss sipped her coffee, its bitterness grounding her. She'd lost something intangible, faith in the town's heart. Neighbors who'd once shared her marigolds now whispered about her stirring trouble. Her health, already fragile from years of labor, faltered. Sleepless nights brought headaches, her single arm trembling under stress. Xavier, though proud, carried guilt for not protecting her sooner, his visits shadowed by unspoken apologies. The viral video had restored her name but stolen her privacy. Strangers messaged her on X, some with support, others with vitriol. Justice had come, but it was a jagged thing, not the smooth resolution she'd once imagined. She looked at her marigolds, their petals curling in the dusk, and thought of her mother's words. Righteousness costs child, but you pay it to stand tall. Corliss had stood tall, but the price was solitude, a fractured trust in Wynndale's goodwill. The audit might change policies, but could it mend the town's soul? Justice, she realized, was never easy or perfect. It was a battle won in increments, leaving scars as proof. She clasped the necklace, its cool weight a reminder of Xavier's love and resolve to keep shining even if the light felt dimmer now. The cost was real, but so was her strength. Wynndale would remember Corliss Hayes not as a victim, but as a force who demanded truth. Justice's imperfections only fueled her resolve to keep fighting one quiet step at a time. Wynndale woke to a new rhythm after Corliss Hayes' stand. The Justice Department's audit spurred reforms. Body cameras became mandatory for Wynndale's police, and a civilian oversight board was established, its first meeting packed with residents demanding transparency. A local petition sparked by the viral video gathered thousands of signatures, pushing for anti-bias training in schools and workplaces. X posts amplified the movement, with Justice for Corliss inspiring marches across North Carolina. The media spotlight lingered, a local station launching a series on racial equity featuring Corliss's story. Ron Darby humble distributed civil rights pamphlets, his diary entries a quiet confession of change. Corliss, though honored with a community award, chose peace over fanfare. She declined interviews, preferring the solitude of her clapboard house. Her marigolds bloomed brighter, a testament to her care. Xavier visited often, their laughter filling the porch, but Corliss sought no stage. She wanted Wendell to heal, not idolize her. Her strength, once a beacon in the police station, now glowed in her quiet resilience, a life lived on her terms. As autumn settled, Corliss walked to the town square, her brown leather shoes steady on the cobblestones. She placed a single marigold on a memorial bench for civil rights pioneers, its petals vivid against the weathered wood. The community gathered not for her, but for a shared promise of change. The oak trees whispered overhead, their leaves falling like soft applause, a symbol of roots, enduring and branches reaching for a better tomorrow. Corliss Hayes' story rippled beyond Wendell, a stone cast into the still waters of history. Her stand on Ellison Street, marked by a single marigold on a memorial bench, became a beacon for the young, the weary, the unheard. Each petal she planted, each quiet step she took, sowed courage in hearts that watched from afar. What will you do after learning her story? Will you speak when silence is easier, stand when others turn away? Corliss, with one arm and an emerald's glow, showed that integrity is not in loud victories, but in steadfast truth. Her fight against a slap, a stereotype, a town's indifference, taught that justice begins with one voice refusing to break. Her legacy lives in Wendell's reformed laws, in the teenager's raised phone, and Darby's humbled steps. It thrives in Xavier's pride, and every mother who dares to shine. Corliss chose peace, but her silence roared, urging the next generation to carry the torch. As she said, this mother who lost her arm has lost a little faith in justice, but I have not lost faith in change. Her words, etched in the town's memory, are a call to act, to mend, to rise. Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice." Corliss bent that arc with her heart. Now it's your turn. Like, share, comment, and subscribe. Let her story inspire action in your community. Stand for what's right today and always. Racist cops assault disabled woman, but her son made the cop pay.